Originally, this talk was going to be about mindfulness, and as I was writing it, it kept not being about mindfulness. And I kept going, I have to say something about mindfulness, and it just didn't quite happen. So I guess it's going to be what this is, and it's something about thoughts on why we practice and how to practice. In a way, we talked a little bit, or we've reflected last night on what our aspirations were for the practice. And I think in some way when we embark on any spiritual journey, meditative journey, we're answering a call. We're answering some inner call to, you could call it, in our tradition we would call it to freedom, the freedom of the heart and mind. And this is a call to know the truth about ourselves, about everything, about the world that we live in, the truth of the way things are. There is you could call it a spark in each one of us that wants to know this truth, and in turn actually isn't separated from it. You could say, you could even say, is it, in a way. It's like each of us has this built-in device, like a homing device, or like on the hard drive of a computer. It's just there. It's not something we have to add. It's not an app we have to download. It comes with the apparatus. And we're born with it. And it's our birthright. And everyone has it with no exception. So remember that. You're not the exception. Right? We think that. I'm the only one that. This is a big reason that you've engaged with this practice, and as well as contributing to why you're even sitting here right now. And this homing device is a call to freedom. This spark that's wanting to know actually knows the nature of things and is not separated from that nature. No matter what life events you are exposed to and how those life events impact you or anyone, that spark can't be extinguished. It can be obscured, covered over, quieted by all sorts of things. Distress, layers of negative emotion, fear, habit patterns in the heart and mind. So it can be obscured, but it doesn't go out. Not possible for it to go out. Now that's the good news for us. The good news, and also I would say it's essential for us to get, at least on some level, it's important to know that as we walk on this path. What this means is that we don't have to manufacture something. It's not something that we don't have and we have to get. It's not something we have to change to be better at. Everything we need to be whole, happy, and free is already right here. It's not something we're going to get. Remember that Bodhidharma quote I said last night, I did not gain a single thing through attaining supreme enlightenment. Now this position of already having it, kind of wholeness, completeness, is really not the message that we usually get when we're growing up, is it? Either through our environment or and the people in it, or through our own thoughts in our own minds, the way we can tend to internalize our external world and the messages in that external world. The message from others, and in turn it can be from ourselves, is something like, we're not good enough the way we are now, and we have to change in order to be happy. This is very insidious, this. And as we practice, I think, at least what I've experienced, is just waking up to the insidiousness, is that a word? Insidiousness of that on ever subtler and subtler levels. This idea that happiness is if I change. One reason that we meditate is to get to know these habit patterns in our mind, these layers. Through our mindfulness, here's some talk on mindfulness. Through our mindfulness, we get to know them, we see them. They don't just operate kind of just in subconscious, because that's where they really have their power. When unwholesome habit patterns are in our mind, our heart and mind, and they're occurring and we're not aware of them, then they really can have a lot of sway over us. But once we shine the light of mindfulness on them, they have less power. It's like a thief. In the dark, it can move, it can steal, it can kind of do what it wants. But you shine the light on it, it's like, caught, and not as powerful. So remember, this is not about getting something. It's also not getting rid of anything. We don't have to get rid of these habit patterns that tell us we're not enough or we need to change or get better. Only see them in the light of mindfulness. See them clearly. When we're kind of going about our day-to-day lives, there's a lot going on. Family and kids and work, and just it's quite, that stream is a fast stream. And there's much to think about and do, and the mind is filled with all sorts of things, filled with lots of stuff. But when we consciously let go of that the way we're doing now, voluntarily renounce much of the content of our life. I mean, coming here on retreat, 90-something% of the content of our life, the outer content, I'm not talking the inner, but the outer, is let go of. And of course that's by design. So when we let go of that, get quiet and meditate, what can tend to be kind of underneath the day-to-day busyness in the heart and mind has a chance to be seen. You can say it comes up to the surface, or we have an opportunity to see it. Now, when we do this and stop and meditate, it doesn't necessarily mean that all of a sudden the heart and mind is going to get calm, easeful, content. It might, but it might not. We might see that there's a lot of planning, worrying, hoping for things to be a certain way or not to be a certain way. Have you noticed today yet? Now, this doesn't mean that's the only things that are in our minds. Remember, I was talking about notice the other times too, when there's calm. Thoughts of generosity, kindness, compassion. So our job in meditation is to shine the light on whatever's happening. See it, be with it in a non-judgmental way. We just check it out. The common description of Vipassana meditation is being with our moment-to-moment experience with non-judgmental attention or awareness. Doesn't say what that experience should be or shouldn't be. It's just being with whatever is. whatever arises in our minds, whatever presents itself in any given moment are these layers that I'm talking about. The layers that are often a little bit underneath full consciousness, perhaps, in our busy lives. So we check them out. The more these layers can be known and seen clearly, the more we can fully know ourselves. There's this wonderful enlightenment poem by this Japanese nun named Izumi Shikibu. This is way back when, I think maybe 12th century or something. I don't know if I'll get the whole poem right, but something like, watching the moon at midnight, mid-sky, I knew myself completely, no part left out. And that was her description of enlightenment, by the way. I knew myself completely, no part left out. And the more we know ourselves, the more we know all these layers, the more we can begin, or will naturally begin to recognize our deepest longing, which is to be free and authentic and manifest who we truly are. Now, this can be a little bit scary business. Like, manifest who I truly am, be my authentic self. That sounds a bit, I don't know, maybe a little scary or a bit much. There's this very interesting quote I found, and somehow I've lost who it's by. But it speaks to this way we can kind of shrink back sometimes from the fullness of what's possible. And it goes, it is not the skeletons in our closet or the dark thoughts in our minds that we're most afraid of. It is recognizing and accepting that the essence of who we are is what we call love, beauty, truth, or God. This love and beauty is expressed uniquely through each one of us. It's expressed in as many different ways as there are people, and moments for that matter. Just a little qualifier with the word love here. This is not the romantic love that the word is often or mostly associated with. I mean, it can manifest that way, right? This is really more about metta, loving kindness. This is the fullness of the heart that doesn't discriminate. I love this person, not that person, just the ability of the heart to love. So it can manifest within a romantic relationship, and when it does, that's beautiful. But this is more about a deep caring for the welfare of others. Again, not picking and choosing. Everybody, all creatures, all beings. And it wants them to be happy, to be truly happy. And it wants them to know for themselves who they really are, and to manifest their own unique way of expressing who they really are. This is some of what we were practicing today in the sympathetic joy practice. We want others to be their fullness. We rejoice when they are their fullness and can do well in life and can love well. You want them to be happy and express their full potential as a human being. To the degree that we know ourselves is to the degree that we know other human beings. To the degree that we explore and take a look at and experience our own hearts and minds is to the degree that we see, just quite naturally, that the hearts and minds of other human beings. And I don't mean like see and like read their thoughts or that way, but just how our nature is the same, how our struggles are same, or how our deep happinesses are very similar. So this manifestation of our you could say our authentic selves, our ability to really have our hearts love deeply the world that we live in, is one half of why we practice. This is a quote by Nisargadatta. All you need is already within you. Only you must approach yourself with reverence and love. Self-condemnation and self-distrust are grievous errors. They're grievous errors. All I plead with you is this: make love of yourself perfect. So these grievous errors, we want to wake up to these, I was mentioning a few minutes ago, these layers that we can internalize. I'm not good enough, I need to change, I need to get better in order to be happy. These are grievous errors, and we want to know them as that. Now, being authentic, and what does authentic mean? It means to be for there to be no gap between our understanding and what's happening with us right in the moment. I'm trying to think of another word that might be helpful. Integrity. Having integrity. And I use that word, and it's almost like simple sense, because we can think of integrity like, I have integrity. But I'm going to use it in the sense of, there's some carrying beams going across this roof, yeah, and they hold weight. And you can speak of one of these beams would have integrity, which means there's no gap in it in its ability to carry a load. If there were, it would not be good. So the word integrity used in the sense of no gap. So when we're authentic or have integrity, there's no gap between ourselves and the world, between ourselves and ourselves. It's all there to be seen, to be welcomed and acknowledged, and to be understood, to be deeply understood. This is integrity. I knew myself completely, no part left out. And the key to being able to embody and manifest this love and compassion, this half of the reason we practice, the key to that is being authentic. How can we do it if we're not authentic? If we're limiting ourselves by thinking that some things, some mind states, some emotions, some ways that we are okay and some aren't okay, there's no way we're going to be able to embody and manifest. We'll be fractured, cut up into little pieces, not whole. So not acting like who we think we should be, or what we think loving looks like, but allowing ourselves to be present with just what is. What's present in the moment is what's most important. Not any ideas about anything, just what's present. Which was what was so lovely standing outside before we came into the hall. It was just so clear. Everyone was just being with what was happening. Some beautiful sounds, the beautiful air on the skin. A lot of it was pleasant, so it was easy to be with, right? We like to be with what's pleasant. But still, supported by that pleasantness, there was this sense of just human beings standing around, not talking, being still, and just being with what is. It's a bit easier to do that with the warm breeze and the birds. Can we do that with our own inner experience? Whatever layer, whatever is revealing itself to us in the moment is what needs our attention and care. Not just our attention, but our care. There's a way that we can know things are happening, attend to them, but it can be a little bit like, I don't know, like scripted or kind of, I don't know, cold's too hard of a word, but it can lack the invitation to be present and meeting it with like a loving presence, not just knowing something, but knowing it with a lot of tenderness and care. Whatever is present in our hearts and minds, we see it clearly, we let it live its life and watch it pass away. Nothing lasts, everything is born, lives its life, and passes away. A tree, a thought, a poem, an emotion, a cloud, a human life, all these have the same characteristic. This is one of the most important things that the Buddha taught, that all things are impermanent. They don't last. This is the last thing he said before he died. All conditioned things are impermanent. Strive on with diligence. This is an important thing. Someone like the Buddha, of all the things he could have said on his last words, it was, everything's impermanent. He was like, remember that. This is a key. And when we bring our attention to any experience, or the experience of a bird chirping, the experience of a thought or an emotion in our inner life, they're all, if we can be present for them, they're all just screaming at us, impermanence, impermanence. It's just coming and going. It's very clear if we can see, if we can stop enough to connect and see. Now, whatever we connect with in the moment that's arising is perfect. Not perfect in like the pinnacle of experience, but perfect because it could not be any other way. Remember, becoming free does not equal changing anything or getting better. It means being okay with what is in the moment. So we're not starting out this life and this practice deficient. It's just not true. What we're starting out, or where we find ourselves presently, is simply ill-informed. Those are two very different things. We are ill-informed in that we think this, what I was saying, that we need to get better to be happy. We're ill-informed in not understanding what leads to happiness and what leads to suffering. We're ill-informed at not seeing the true nature of our own hearts and minds. So we practice to be better informed. That's kind of one way you can look at what we're doing. Look at our own experience so we can be better informed about the nature of our hearts and minds, about the nature of things, as Pat was talking about. We can see it. We can learn it. It's evident there. It's evident. It's there to be seen, and we can see it if we can train ourselves to be present. We can see the nature of all things, including our own, what's in our own hearts and minds, and we can know that the content of our hearts and minds does not have the ability to define who we are. We can see that. We can actually know that in our own experience. The more we study and investigate our experience, including our own hearts and minds, the more we see everything that goes through for what it really is. And that is, we see them as thoughts, as emotions, as habit patterns in the mind. That's it. That's all they are. In and of themselves, they have no power over us. It's this really great story. I was sitting a retreat one time, and it was so I was a yogi, and it was a question and answer time in the hall. And a yogi raised their hand, and the teacher called them in, and they were kind of going on and on about all the murderous rage in their mind. And they were kind of, really kind of getting into it and saying a lot about it. And they talked for a while, and it's quite dramatic. And they were done. And it was great. It was such perfect timing, too. The teacher just paused for a few moments and then said, "It's just murderous rage. What's the problem?" It was great. I mean, it was a sword of wisdom just cutting through the identification with the content of the heart and mind. It was like such a well-timed slice. And the person got it. They were kind of like, wow. Murderous rage follows its own nature. That's what it does. It rages in a murderous way. That's its nature. It's just following its nature. Everything is following its nature. And we can watch it in a detached way, meaning detached in a healthy detachment, meaning not identified with, not believing that it is saying something intrinsically about who we are. When we get that, not intellectually, but when we know it deep in our bones, even just for a second, this is not, have to last 5 minutes. It's very powerful. And the content of our experience can start to lose its grip on us. This knowing, this getting it, is, we could say, is wisdom, and the other half of why we practice. Now, this doesn't mean that we'll never, believe our thoughts again or never get caught up in the content of our heart and mind. Of course not. But little by little, even just little moments, when we believe thoughts, emotions, content a little bit less, it begins to free us. This is what we call by freedom. It begins to free us from the tyranny of believing them, of fully identifying with them. So this freedom isn't something far off in the future. Something we have to work hard, build up to, and then, for really good, maybe then it'll all kind of happen at once. Small moments of freedom are possible here and now, right in this moment. In fact, where else could it happen? Where else could freedom be but right in this moment? Right here, right now is the only place we can be free. Which is why you want to notice as you're sitting. Freedom from identification with content. Just sitting here, no problem. We want to notice that. This is nice. This is a little taste of freedom. This is Ramakrishna, quote, O longing mind, dwell within the depth of your own pure nature. Do not seek your home elsewhere. Your naked awareness alone, O mind, is the inexhaustible abundance for which you long so desperately. It's right here. So why we practice? Half of the reason is kind of the love, compassion, allowing ourselves to be really vessels for that. And the other half is this seeing clearly, or wisdom. And we can and do talk about them separate, but they really work together in tandem with one another. Another way to look at it is that they're just two different sides of the same coin. So I want to give some examples of how each one feeds the other. So let's say we have the wisdom, we have the clear seeing, that if we get angry, if anger arises in us, it doesn't say anything about who we are. It's just anger. We can be clear about that in the moment, be free from the identification with that. It's just energy, or it's just thoughts in the mind. Remember the story about murderous rage. It's just that. Doesn't mean we're a bad person, doesn't say a thing about who we are. Now, to the degree that we know that will be to the degree that we will not be reactive to that. We won't be reactive with ourselves about that there's anger. I'll just keep using this example of anger. And if we're not all tied up being reactive, maybe getting down on ourselves, however it is, we'd be reactive about the anger. We can turn our attention to the anger itself and learn what it has to teach us, which is, it comes and it goes. If we're all in reactivity about it, can't learn that. The knowing of that will be shielded. It'll be like a veil comes down. The reactivity will blind us to the true nature of the anger. The other thing is, if we're not being reactive to the anger, it's like we can rest. We can be at ease. And in that place of rest and ease, of course, that is the place where this goodness, this love can shine. For reactive, at least temporarily, it's not going to be available, is it? Right? When you're reactive, your most loving self is temporarily on hold. This kind of letting ourselves off the hook, in this example for the anger arising, it really feels good to us. It feels really good. And from this place of feeling good, of ease, openness, we're much more able. It's the conditions where we can be our loving, authentic selves. So in this case, it's the wisdom, it's this clear seeing that the anger is just a thought. They're just angry thoughts. It's supporting, it's creating the conditions of ease and for the love and compassion to be present. And then it can work the other way around. Let's say someone is acting in a way that's hurtful to us. Without love, without this knowing how other people are very similar to us, how our struggles and our joys are really, really similar, without this wanting others to be their fullest authentic self. If someone's hurtful to us and this love is not present, we're probably going to react in some habitual way. Pull back, go forward, fight, some way that we've learned to react to when we feel hurt. And there's no wisdom in when we're reactive. It's just we're just lost in the reaction. We are the reaction. There's no seeing. Our view of the other person in that case might be something, they're a jerk or they're bad or something negative. If the love is present, we'll see their struggle in life. We'll know they're essentially good and that they're in the moment they're hurting and they're acting out. We'll know that. It will just be concomitant with their behavior. It will arise naturally if it's there. And when this attitude is there, when this love is there, and there's just the knowing of they're just having a hard time. I remember one time I was a cook at IMS, and as I mentioned, we give up a lot coming on retreat. Really, we give up a lot of control. And it's not uncommon for people to get kind of hooked in by giving up their control of food. That can be a big one. And sometimes it would be directed towards us. And sometimes it was, when there wasn't that love and compassion there, in the mind it was just like, what a pain in the butt this yogi is, or these yogis are. It's like, again, that's the more fight response. But one day, this yogi came storming into the kitchen, like they're not even supposed to come in the kitchen. They came storming in the kitchen and just started ranting about why we had to put onions in everything. And it was just so clear that they were suffering. It's like, it was so clear. And I remember, to this day, I remember just that love and compassion just arose. It was just there. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be loving now. It's just what came up. And I was able to hold quite a bit of reactivity, like without a problem. It was just not a problem because they were just having a hard time in the moment. So we don't feel like we need to fight or run away when that's present. And we can also, instead of being reactive, we can be responsive. What do I need to do here? What's the right thing to do? Do I need to listen to them? Do they need to be heard? Do I need to step out? Do I need to extract myself from this situation? Being loving and compassionate doesn't mean that we just let people abuse us. But we can be clear about what needs to happen. There's a lot of space when we can hold what's happening in love and compassion. So the end result is we might be there with them, or the end result is we might take space, or the end result might be that we engage with them and maybe even engage with them in a fiercely compassionate way. There's no right or wrong, but it will be our choice, not our reaction. And what we choose to do will be based on the clear seeing, the wisdom that sees clearly now. Yeah, that space. Oh, This is what is appropriate. Sometimes enlightenment is described as an appropriate response to life, to the moment, to what's happening. So we see what's needed. Our ability to be in touch with our own goodness and this love and compassion that arises from that is, in this case, the ground or the support for this wisdom or clear seeing to arise. Our ability to hold the difficulty gives the space, the non-reactivity for clear seeing to happen. So wisdom can support love, and love can support wisdom. They're both, it's like two strands of a rope. That sounds great, doesn't it? Right? Words. But how do we do this? How do we actually practice? How do we cultivate this? And that could be a whole nother talk, right? But there is something that I want to just say a few words about, just because it's the beginning of the retreat, and I think it's helpful to kind of reflect on what I'm about to say. And that is the qualities of mind of diligence and of patience. We have to be able to cultivate diligence in order to keep going in this practice. We can't do it without it. We need resolution, diligence. These are paramis in order to keep going. And keeping going is what it's all about. It's not about this attainment or that attainment or anything. It's about just if we keep going. There's a wonderful, we don't have time, but if you ever want to look for it, wonderful sutta where the Buddha talks about this. And he makes an analogy of a hen sitting on the nest. We just have to keep going. So an arhat is a word for a fully enlightened being. And one description of an arhat is someone who didn't stop. Not someone way more special than you, or started out with some more goodies in their bag or whatever. It's that they didn't stop. This is the 17th or current karmapa. All samsara's joys and riches resemble last night's dreams. Once you have seen them to be trivial and futile, with all doubts settled, take up the genuine Dharma. Practice with diligence. The Buddha, the quote I just said, all things are impermanent. Strive on with diligence. This is an important last words. So there's that side of things, that keeping going. And then there's patience. This is Sayadaw U Pandita, one of the great elders in our lineage from Burma. He said, the road to liberation is paved with patience. And this is the Buddha again. Patience is the supreme virtue. So you might think, well, are these contradictory? The road to liberation is paved with patience. Yes, absolutely. And it's diligence that keeps us walking on that road. We want to know when they're both, either or both are present, and when they're not. The diligence is associated with the gentle, continuous effort we make in our practice. The patience is associated with everything that happens after that. That is the manner in which our diligence unfolds. We're not in control. Remember, we're not in control of how this unfolds. This is where the patience comes in. Do your best to not be concerned with results. That is such a trap. It's such a dead end. Ask me how I know. Yet we do lapse into being result-oriented. It's such a part of our conditioning. So we can be aware of that and have patience with that. Have patience with all your habit patterns. While we may have a sense of the top of the mountain or where we're going, our wholehearted attention is this step, and then this step, and then this step. We simplify the practice into just here and now. Being just present in this moment without wanting or not wanting is the condition that leads to freedom of the heart and mind. And in a certain way, as I was mentioning before, it is right in this moment, freedom of the heart and mind, when the wanting and not wanting is absent, and we're just simply with what is. It's momentary freedom from suffering. The Buddha taught freedom through non-clinging. He taught that for 40 years. So whenever we're at ease with the way things are, we are having we're tasting the freedom of non-clinging. And I wish for you many moments of that on this retreat and also in your lives. We have a few moments left, and I'd like to end with a story because I like stories. Yeah, they're rich. You know, you can hear words like I just spoke, and they live in a certain way. But a story tends to be richer. It's like a fuller expression of something. So I love to read them, and I love to teach with them. And this is a story I like, and I like to tell it because it just really points to the simplicity of our practice, the simplicity of just being present, without it being convoluted, without needing anything to be different. After lunch one day, the abbess and a visiting philosophy professor went for a walk along the river that passed by the monastery. Being a hot day, they eventually sat down to cool off under the shade of a large tree. The professor asked, "I am interested in learning Buddhist philosophy. Could you tell me some of the fundamental doctrines of your religion?" "Well," said the abbess, "I don't think I can help you much. You see, we don't rely on any philosophy at the monastery." "But," continued the professor, "everyone, consciously or unconsciously, has a philosophy with which they make sense of their life and their purpose." "It is different at the monastery," replied the abbess. "At the monastery, we rely on awareness, not doctrines." "But," insisted the professor, "you must have a philosophy which explains the importance of being aware." After pausing to consider how to best respond, the abbess said, "As we walked along, we were both aware of how hot, sweaty, and tired we had become from our walk. We did not need a philosophy to tell us the benefits of sitting down here in the shade. If you put your hand on a hot stove, you do not need a philosophy to pull the hand away. If a baby is crying from hunger, the need to feed the child is obvious to the parent. Buddhist practice does not depend on having a set of doctrines or beliefs. Rather, it depends on being aware of what brings release from suffering. Rather than being taught Buddhist philosophy, at the monastery the monks and nuns are trained to develop an acutely refined awareness. With such sensitivity, ultimate liberation is as natural as sitting down in the shade on a hot day. So this is what we're doing here in the monastery, us monks and nuns. We are becoming more and more intimate with our experience through mindfulness. Mindfulness. Being aware, knowing ourselves completely, no part left out. We're being more and more intimate with our experience. Quite naturally, as that happens, the path that leads to away from suffering and towards happiness becomes clear. Just like clear to sit down under that tree. It's not something we have to get. It will become clear. So I hope this was beneficial for your practice, and let's sit quietly for a moment. Let the words dissolve. It's time for walking. Enjoy this beautiful night. Enjoy your walking.